Welcome back, it's me Lou, and I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today we are looking at this. It comes from Iron Factory. It is the Iron Factory EX-44 City Commander Final Battle Armor. So if you're looking at this and you're thinking to yourself, hey, this kind of looks like Ultra Magnus. It actually is Ultra Magnus. But this is produced from a third-party company. It's unlicensed. So Iron Factory cannot call this Ultra Magnus due to legal reasons. So the thing is, figures like these exist because Transformers is like insanely popular in Asia, more specifically in China. And there's so many different Transformer characters that are super and mega popular that Hasbro hasn't created toys of, and a lot of these characters come from the other fictions, especially the comic books. So there's companies in China that have taken it upon themselves to make their own Transformer toys of these characters that don't exist in action figure form yet, and they'll produce the figures and design them all themselves. And they'll give them weird, fancy names, but by the end of the day, they can't call them Transformers because, for legal reasons, these are not official Hasbro or Takara products. And this is one of them. This is a very special version of Ultra Magnus, and it's inspired by his appearance in the IDW comics, more specifically his appearance in I believe it was the Transformers Lost Light series, which was written by James Roberts and is mostly illustrated by, I think, Jack Lawrence and Alex Milne. So this version of Ultra Magnus is based on his kind of like final form in the last story arc of the series before the series closed off. So essentially, the comic was, there's a group of Transformers, mostly Autobots, that are led by Rodimus Prime and Megatron. And they're going on this journey trying to find like this cyber utopia and the Knights of Cybertron. And along the way, they come across this planet and they're met up with the Decepticon Justice Division. And it's a very loyalist Decepticon group who are Decepticons to the core, and the galaxy fears them. So Autobots and Decepticons alike fear the Decepticon Justice Division, and they make the Lost Lights crew miserable while they're on this planet. They kill a bunch of them, and they beat the crap out of Megatron. And I think in final retaliation, the Autobots and the Lost Light crew, they give Ultra Magnus, or also known as Minimus Ambush, this kind of like super form, and it's called Maximus Ambush. So here's the debut of Maximus Ambush in the comic book. I want to say, I think this is the artwork of Alex Milne, I think. So we have Brainstorm here introducing Rodimus Prime to Maximus Ambush. So he says, something big. Allow me to introduce Maximus Ambush. And then Rodimus is like, that is the mother of all upgrades. What's the verdict, Maximus? And I believe Ultra Magnus just replies, tasty. So yeah, this is a beefed up super Ultra Magnus. And this is what this version of the toy represents. So let's get started. So first off, since this is not an official Transformer product, you'll see that the box is very different than what you expect from a Transformer toy. It's very boutique, very graphic design inspired. It looks kind of premium. You kind of have this honeycomb pattern. On the left, here's the Iron Factory logo, recommend for ages 15 and up. And on the side, it's the City Commander, Final Battle Armor, and this is an Iron Factory EX-44. So Iron Factory, what they're really known for is making smaller Transformer figures, which fall into the Legend scale. Now, those figures they stand, I think, anywhere between maybe like 2.5 inches to maybe like 3.5 inches. But this represents a much larger character, so you're looking at something that, judging from the window, this thing is probably close to, I don't know, 6 or 7 inches. Just because in the comic book, this guy was huge. So here we have the window. It kind of frames the upper half of Minimus Ambush or Ultra Magnus. Down over here, we have his alt form, which is the cab with the trailer. And then here's Minimus Ambush, Ultra Magnus's true form, which is a smaller guy. And he's what they call a point, I think it's like a 0.1 percenter. So in the world of Transformers, I think it's a 0.1 percenter. They're the equivalent of the mutants of the Transformers. It's a very, very tiny group of Transformers who are kind of like gifted with superpowers. And Ultra Magnus's or Minimus Ambush's superpower is that he's load bearing. So he's really small, but he could like lift the crap out of like heavy stuff. So he uses that to his advantage by wearing the Magnus armor, which is something that I think it's almost kind of like from my understanding, I think the Magnus armor is almost like the armor of like a lawman, but I want to say it's passed down throughout generations. Not 100% sure on that, but for some reason that's something I kind of vaguely remember. If I'm wrong, just correct me. I don't care. So here's Ultra Magnus in his final form. On the back, there's on the spine a much larger shot. On the other side, another shot. And on the back, this is where the toy really shines. You see what you're getting. You get Minimus Ambush, the small little, the Ultra Magnus' true form. And then next to him is the giant Ultra Magnus Minimus Ambush final form. Over here, different, poses and weapon options. It looks like here you go like he has a rifle. Over here it looks like he could convert the rifle and add on some of the additional armor pieces to make, which I think it's supposed to represent the Soulless Hammer. For those of you that are kind of familiar with Transformers lore, there's so many. So there's Optimus Prime, and there's been other primes throughout history, and one of the primes I believe was Soulless Prime, and I think Soulless Prime was like either a weaponer or like an armorer, and then Soulless Prime had this, I think it's called the Soulless Hammer. So I think that's what this is supposed to represent. Over here we have Ultra Magnus in the superhero landing pose. Over here we have Ultra Magnus with his forearm cannons, and here's the alt mode and Minimus Ambush's alt mode, which is almost kind of like resembles roller. So just a word of just to warn you in advance, I might not transform this, so I don't want to say this is a full review of the figure because I have a hard time transforming toys to begin with, especially if they involve more than 12 steps. I'm not a big guy that needs to transform my Transformer figures. I'm more in love with just the action figure aspect and just the robot forms. So very rarely do I transform my Transformers. It sounds crazy, but that's a thing I do. And believe it or not, there's other people, there's other weirdos like me that, that don't transform their Transformer toys. So for me, this is more, I think I want to say a quick impression video. And not only that, but for the third-party stuff, I'm always kind of leery of transforming them, just because there could be, since this is not an official Hasbro product, the third-party stuff, the quality control isn't always there. So I don't want to risk breaking it. I'd rather look at the figure more thoroughly off camera and then maybe fiddle around with it there. But for now, I just want to make this a quick impression video, just to give you an idea of what's in a box like this. And if you've never handled or seen a third-party Transformer toy before, it's a very cool experience because they're not official, they're not licensed yet. In some parts of the world, they get away with making these really cool action figures. So let's get started. All right, first off, price-wise, I don't know how much this cost. This was a gift given to me by my brother. Initially, he told me this was supposed to be my Christmas gift. and he got it through Big Bad Toy Store, but Big Bad Toy Store, it was sold out, and he was put on a waiting list. And then he didn't get it, and then he's like, you know what, you're just going to probably end up getting it later. If you get it later, just consider it a birthday gift. So then this came much, much, much later, and when I finally got it, I was stoked on it, but I kind of held off on opening it just because, for one, I kind of wanted to share this on YouTube, and I guess number two is that sometimes these third-party stuff, they kind of intimidate me, to be honest. It's not, for me, buying something like this or even receiving it as a gift, it's not like running to Walmart or Target or Toys R Us and buying a Transformer toy and just opening it. For me, the third-party stuff, it's a completely different experience because they're not Hasbro products, and you don't always know what you're going to get, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. On the plus side, sometimes it could be a really positive experience. Like you might handle something that you've never ever handled before and see a level of detail and quality that Hasbro hasn't touched. Or on the opposite end of the spectrum, the third-party stuff could be like a nightmare. There could be quality control issues. You could be missing accessories. You could be missing like something as simple as a head. You might get 2 left hands. It's weird but fascinating, and it's a market that's been around for a long time now, and it's something I think Hasbro's tried to put the kibosh on, and they've been unsuccessful. If you've gone to they don't have them anymore, but back in the day when they used to have BotCon, which was the official Hasbro Transformers convention, there were a couple of years where Hasbro forbade any of the dealers from selling third-party Transformer toys, which was a big reason why a lot of collectors came out to those kind of things, is because, outside of mail order and outlets like eBay, going to these Transformer conventions was an ideal way for many fans to like obtain these third-party toys or even to see them up close and in person. So I mean, it's weird. The fan community, I want to say that a good chunk of the fan community embraces the non-licensed third-party stuff, but there's also a portion of the fan community that thinks it's wrong. Morally, they object to it just because they're taking someone else's intellectual property and capitalizing off of it. As for me, I love the idea of the third-party toys. I get it that they're kind of stepping on Hasbro's toes, but at the same time, if Hasbro's not going to give me a figure of a certain character, I think it's a wonderful thing that other fans and other companies provide, this material. But with that being said, Iron Factory, who produces Iron Factory is a third-party company that produces a smaller scale Transformer, but for me, it's like they're kind of like the cream of the crop when it comes to the smaller scale stuff because they do such a wonderful job, and the stuff they produce is complete fan service. Fans love their material, and I think it really shows in the design and the engineering and the quality of the toy. So, if you look at this, my first impressions out of the box is that this guy it's heavy, it's super detailed. I'm already intimidated by it. Just looking at it, there's articulation out the wazoo. It looks like all of his fingers are individually articulated. You can see the articulation in his thumb. It looks like there's articulation in the cannon, on the shoulder mounts, the head, everything. It looks beautiful. His crazy gun looks insane. Minimus Ambush, the true form of Ultra Magnus in the comic books, looks crazy. It looks super detailed. It's a small fig. Yeah, first impressions, really impressed. Like, even if I didn't take this out of the box, I could honestly say I'd probably give something like this like an 8. An 8 to a 9. And then here we have the instructions. I hate Transformer instructions. Whether it's Hasbro or third-party instructions, I can't. I hate it because they're black and white. I hate them because sometimes the instructions can be vague, and they might tell you to twist this or that, but you'll try doing it and it doesn't really work. So for me, sometimes I'll forego looking at the instructions, and when I want to transform a toy, I'll just go onto YouTube and find someone that reviews it, and I'll just follow along as they transform it on video. Because sometimes you look at these things and it's like, I can't make heads or tails of this. You know, it's black and white line work, and sometimes it's super detailed, or sometimes the arrows, you don't know if something's actually swinging down or if it's swinging to the right or left. But, you know, this is part of the experience, just in general. And, I mean, there's a lot of people, myself included, when I was younger, I used to love the aspect of being able to transform the toys. But as I grew older, I kind of refrained from doing it just because I'm more of... It's not that I don't play with them or anything like that. I mean, I'm kind of old, so I don't really play with my toys. But I'm more so about this, especially when it came to Transformers, displaying them on a shelf. I love to form teams, so I group, like, you know... I have all my G1 Autobots, you know, from the cartoon grouped together. I have all my IDW Lost Light Crew Transformers grouped together. So for me, it's just a way of expressing my love for the fandom is by grouping all my toys into certain factions. Like for my Marvel Legends, you know, I like to devote a certain display space just to X-Men figures versus another side where it might just be Avengers. And, you know, I'm very much like that with, you know, all my toy lines like Transformers or whatnot. But you see here that the instructions, they're hyper detailed. The line artwork's beautiful, but yeah, this is kind of, it intimidates me. And if I was to transform this thing for the first time, I'd most likely just look up a video on YouTube and just follow along, just to avoid, you know, accidentally breaking something. So yeah, so that's the instructions. Let's put these away and just move along and look at the actual action figure itself. So, reviewing this, let's take a look. Let's save the robot for last. Let's start with the rifle first, and then we'll work our way up to the main event. All right, so here's his rifle. As you can see here, it's super detailed, and just by fiddling around with it, I could kind of see what's articulated. So, this fold-down piece looks like the handle of the gun. And then, let's move this aside so we get a better view of it. So here's the handle. It folds down. Here's the butt of the rifle. Here's the scope. Here's a mini chain gun. And I believe, looking at the box, I think this removes off. So this becomes Minimus Ambush's weapon, the smaller Ultra Magnus. And the gun's kind of cool because the silhouette of it, it almost looks like a weird hybrid between Ultra Magnus's white gun from the G1 toy and Optimus Prime's blaster. I might be wrong on that, but that's the first impression I get. And it looks like parts of this disassemble. I don't want to fiddle around with it too much and accidentally break something, but it almost looks like this middle part could be removed or folded or something. So yeah, this is really cool. Up next we have Minimus Ambush. So this is in the comic books, more specifically the IDW comic books. This is Ultra Magnus's true form. All he really is so Ultra Magnus in the comic book, he's by the numbers. He's a very big, tough character that commands a lot of respect, and likewise he gets it from both the Autobots and the Decepticons. He's always by the numbers. Always by the book. He follows everything to a T. A very strict regimen. But the most surprising thing about him is that when it's later revealed is that, you know, we find out that it's Ultra Magnus is just an armor, and what goes in him is this small tiny guy. It's almost like he has a Napoleon complex. And so this is Minimus Ambush. He's really cool. He's funky because he's a Transformer that has a mustache. So it's really cool. I love the character so much that before Hasbro gave us a version of this character, I actually made my own custom Minimus Ambush, and one of these days I'll share with some of my Transformer customs with you. But yeah, this is great. This figure alone, it's cool as hell. It looks like Minimus Ambush, and it's nice that you get him at the size. And back in the box he goes. And next we have the main event. We have Ultra Magnus, or this is his Minimus Ambush form. Okay, so it's like I said, I apologize in advance. I'm not going to transform this, and I'm not going to get too crazy with moving too many things around. I think, honestly, I'd want to like just examine him first off camera, just to get a gist of him. But it's a nice hefty figure. I want to say from the foot to the top of the head, we're looking at maybe 6 to 6.5 inches tall. So it might seem like this could be a deluxe or Voyager size Transformer figure. Like if you were to compare it to a Hasbro figure, Hasbro has their own scale chart. You have the Legends, you have the Deluxe / Warrior class, and then you have the Voyager figures, and then you have the Leader class, and I think there's even like Ultra and Ultimate and Titan class. But this guy kind of falls within Legend class, but he's giant just because of the nature of how he appears in the comic book. He's articulated, but like I said, I'm kind of scared to move stuff around because the third-party stuff, the joints can be super tight, and they can also be sometimes misassembled. And like right here, I'm kind of noticing like for his arm here, this arm rotates pretty well. But then I notice that this arm doesn't rotate fully, and I'm looking at it, and there's some excess plastic inside the peg that needs to kind of be shaved down, and that's preventing the arm from fully rotating. So that's a quality control issue. Like I said, the third-party stuff, the quality control issues they're there, and you just have to be careful. I'm not sure how I'm going to fix that, because if you look inside, right there, it's either a piece of plastic flash on the peg, or it's malformed, so it's not allowing for a full rotation like it does on this arm, which kind of bothers me a little. But it's alright, I could kind of live with that for now. This is a beautiful piece. So, examining the detail up close, the sculpting is beautiful. Like most Transformer toys, these things like this are probably designed on 3D programs. I'm trying to rotate that arm. Okay, I got this arm to rotate. Even though the peg was kind of malformed, I think I loosened it up enough so it can move now. So yeah, articulation-wise, his arm rotates, his elbows move, his fingers are individually articulated. His shoulder cannons off to the side, I believe they could be removed. Yeah, they could be removed. I want to say there might be the universal peg size for Transformers, which I think this might be a 5mm peg. I believe that's the universal size. Socket. These cannons, shoulder things can move down. I apologize for the focus on my camera. This isn't a high-end camera. Like, this is a cheaper document camera. Maybe one day I'll upgrade to a more expensive, higher end model. But for now, this is what I'm using. So I apologize if this isn't as in focus as some of the other reviewers you might see out there. Knee bend. Could he kick out? I'm not sure. He might be able to kick out just because this goes out. Yeah, his knees kick out. His thigh swivel. His ankles, I think it's on a ball joint. They rock, but I'm not sure if it's on a ball joint. Color scheme wise, it's what you expect Ultra Magnus to look like. If you were to compare him to his comic book appearance, it's pretty spot on. With the exception of, he's missing the Autobot emblem on his shoulders. Looks like most of the details are accounted for, and there's some embellishment, but it's, I'd say it's about 95 to 99% close. And yeah, this is great. The Transformer third-party stuff, it's an interesting world to dabble in. I want to say, I don't think it's as hot as it was maybe like 3 years ago, just because Hasbro's really stepped up their game in terms of what they provide to like the hardcore fan base, especially with stuff like the Masterpiece, and more specifically the Transformers Studio series. Yeah, this is a wonderful figure. Yeah, so up close, we have his shoulder cannons here. Now, maybe this will help. Let me take this away so you can kind of see it a little better. Alright, that might help a little. It's hard having contrast when you have white pieces against the white paper. So maybe against this wooden surface, you can see the details a little bit better. So yeah, the sculpting is really detailed and crisp on everything. It's cool. There's some decent micro printing of just random letters and call signs on certain parts of them. It's very Gundam-like. I mean, this design's kind of... a design like this feels more Gundam-like than Transformers. And I think that's partially because the artist who designed them... If it's designed by Alex Milne, I know he's very influenced by Gundam when it comes to his Transformer designs. Which I don't have a problem with. I know some fans might, but I love Gundam design mech. And I think if you could take some of that influence and apply it to a Transformer, it makes it look a little bit more modern. Gives it a much more high-tech aesthetic, yet retaining a very armored feel. And so let's compare this guy to some of the other Ultra Magnuses that are produced by Iron Factory while we're at it. So yeah, we have Maximus Ambush here. And then I think we have here, this might be the first release of Iron Factory Ultra Magnus. So when you're talking scale, this I don't think it's 100% accurate, but in the comic books, Ultra Magnus would generally be this size, and then when he upgrades to this super armor, it really bulks him up to this larger robot. So I think the scale, these are pretty close to what they're supposed to be in the comic book. And then Iron Factory down the road, they gave us another iteration of this figure, but the color scheme was based off more of the cartoon and comic books than the toy. So this one has the toy color scheme, and the way you can tell that is because this has the red thighs. The animation model and the comic book model, I believe it's a different shade of blue, and then he has the white thighs. So I think, I can't remember, I think this one might have came out first, and this was the repaint, and that came out second, I think. And both of them come with a Solus hammer right there. And these are beautiful figures. I want to say I might have paid $30 or $40 for these at the time when these came out some years ago, which seems like a lot of money for something so small. But if you dabble in the world of the third-party Transformer toys, the non-licensed stuff, it sounds like the pricing is kind of reasonable, but that's what that's what you have to come to expect. You're buying something that's unlicensed, something that's produced in a different country, and the level of detail might be a little bit higher than what you come to expect. So they took this figure again, and then they tried to milk it for what it was worth, and they gave us a repaint. And I think this was based off more of the Diaclone Ultra Magnus. And in the fiction, I believe this is the Delta Magnus, I think. Can't remember. And since we're on the subject of tiny Ultra Magnuses, here's another one. I believe this one was made by Mastermade, and I think this came with Mastermade's third-party Metroplex. And this is, Mastermade's version of the City Commander. And I have an Ultra Magnus figure next to me. This one is one of my favorite ones. It came out some years ago. It's from the Transformer. It's an actual official Transformer produced by Hasbro, and it's under their Combiner Wars subline. Let me go grab it real quick. It's within arm's reach in my display. So over here we have Combiner Wars Ultra Magnus. This is a much larger figure. I think this is the... There's a way to tell which version this is. I think this is the don't know if this is the Hasbro version. I'm trying to open it up. I can't remember how to transform this guy. Oh, shoot. Yeah, this is the Hasbro guy. So you can actually reveal the inner robot on this guy, but I can't figure out how to do that. It's been a couple of years since I've transformed this. I want to say I think the chest opens out. Alright, there we go. And then the head kind of, I think the head folds back. Oh yeah, so you can kind of see Minimus Ambush sitting inside of Ultra Magnus. So this is the Hasbro version. So the Hasbro version has the Minimus Ambush action figure seated in the inside. Whereas the Japanese version of this figure, the colors are different, and you don't get Minimus Ambush. Instead, you get Alpha Trion. So in some ways, if you're a hardcore collector, you have to double dip on this figure just because it comes with two completely different accessories in addition to the different color schemes. So I think this is a leader class sized figure, and this one probably stands at maybe 9 inches from the foot to the top of the head. Probably close to 12 inches if you count these giant shoulder stacks. Size wise, if you're to compare these two, there is a very big height difference. But it's like I said, this represents a different scale of Transformer than this one. Alright, just give me a second. I'm just putting this toy back on the shelf. Alright, so if I had to rate this guy numerically, alright, so this is barring me transforming him. I did get the chance to fiddle around with him just a little bit. Oh wow, for me, an easy 9. At the lowest, an 8. So anywhere between an 8 and a 9. You know, you can argue that a 9 might be too generous, but you know, it's hard to argue when the figure looks almost exactly like what it's supposed to look like. You know, very rarely does Hasbro give us stuff that looks like what it's supposed to look like. You know, they'll give us, like, for example, the Transformers Studio series. You know, those are supposed to look as close as possible as to like the CG models that you see in the movies, and you know, they kind of get there. They fall probably in the range with like between 60 to 75% of what they look like on screen. But this looks really close to this. And if you're a fan of the comic books, which there were many people that were hardcore into this specific line of comics, this figure is like, it's almost like a godsend because what this character represents. So yeah, I like this figure a lot. It was a wonderful gift from my brother. I thank him dearly for it. So let's wrap this up. This video is running a little bit long. I do recommend this if you're a fan of the IDW comic books. More specifically, the More Than Meets the Eye comic or the Lost Light comic. If you're a fan of Minimus Ambush and Ultra Magnus, if you cried when they killed off certain characters during the storyline, you know, chances are you'll cry when you hold this figure for the first time. It's really something. So, yeah, once again, my name is Lou. Thank you so much, as always, for coming by and checking out this video. I love Transformer toys. I used to be really hardcore into them. I know a lot of my stuff lately has been focused on superheroes, but in the future, I would love to do more Transformer stuff. There's so many great Transformer reviewers out there, and it's like I said, I'm not a guy that's going to sit here and transform the toys for you, just because I'm more of an action figure guy, and I just love the robot forms. But this is a great toy. Yeah, so feel free to drop by anytime. I really appreciate it. So, thanks again, and I'll talk to you soon. Later.